Hi, my name is Melissa Overton. I am a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach, as well as the CEO of medicaltraining.me, which is a local safety company that provides first aid, CPR, and advanced medical life support for industrial companies, for daycares, for healthcare providers, churches that want friends and family CPR, a little bit of everything. The reason I'm coming to you today is because I did an informal presentation this morning for a leadership group, just talking about what we're going through right now and kind of giving a leadership education moment. And my heart told me to go back and record it so that I could share it with more people, as I think this information is relevant. So I put together a few slides that they didn't have, so that's how special you are watching this. Is I've put some slides together to kind of connect the dots, because I think some of us are visual people, and just listening to somebody talk on a screen is a little overwhelming. So I labeled the topic appropriately, dealing with what's next. I didn't have anything clever. Like I said, this came from my heart, and I didn't have time to think of anything flashy and fancy. So if somebody's got ideas later, we'll play with it. But right now we're all stressed out. We're all stressing and we're coping in different ways. But one of the first things I wanted to remind you of is that as a registered nurse, I understand that there is a very real physiological effect that is happening as a result of the stress that we're under. So I want you to understand that your brain has this primitive brain still inside, and that's the brain that when the dinosaurs were going to eat us, it reminded us to take off and run. Forget what you were doing, take off and run. So when we are looking at dealing with what's next, I tell people, sometimes you feel like your head is just dissolved off your shoulders. Like you're not sure. It's like, poof, it's gone. I'm not sure what's going on. You're an overload. And so today I wanted to bring some thoughts with you that I kind of had, but I wanted to give you a reference book. People always talk about, what are you reading? John Maxwell will say, what are you reading? What do you know that I need to know? So mirroring him, because I look up to him so much as a leader, and I swear sometimes he feels like a wise grandfather. And when I had the opportunity to meet him, I felt like I was hanging out with my wise grandfather, and it was such a special time. So there's a fantastic book that I'm going to tell you about. I have no reason to promote this at all. I'm not going to gain anything from it except the satisfaction of knowing that I was able to share a resource that I learned about in this situation. And so I'll show you the cover of it in just a second, but there's a book called Micro Resilience by an author, Bonnie St. John. Also, Alan Haynes helped her write the book. I got the opportunity to hear Bonnie speak at my John Maxwell certification training a few years back, and she was so great. She was this really neat lady. She is a Paralympist, medaled, and she wanted to know what makes people rise above the rest in crisis, in times of crisis, or in times of challenge, when you've got the same skill set as someone else and you've got the same opportunity as someone else. What makes that one person edge out the other? And so she started talking about this. And at the beginning of her book, she talked about our fight or flight response with your primitive alarm side of things. And so I wanted to just read a piece of this book to you because I thought that she explained it really well. It says, if your amygdala senses a sense of a threat to your safety, it sounds the alarm and does the equivalent of calling 911 inside your body. Hormonal boosts narrow your vision and heighten your hearing, increase your heart rate and blood pressure, increase muscle tone, decrease your immune response, cancel attention to any unrelated activities, and launch other physiologic reactions to ready your body for fight or flight. And she says that's when you say, I was so mad I couldn't see straight. That's exactly what they're talking about, is your body is zoning in and saying, forget everything else around you. This is about survival. So even though we're not in a place where a dinosaur is getting ready to eat us now, thank God, because that would require me to run, and I don't run. In this situation, it is for us to remember that, what, that is the first response we're going to have to any kind of major crisis, okay? It's going to kick in. And when that kicks in, our superior brain isn't functioning properly. Therefore, we are less able to innovate, collaborate, and see the big picture. She says, under stress, we tend towards negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, anger, and pessimism, and we're prone to errors in our reasoning and analysis. So that is to remind you that this is a very, very, very real thing, okay? Because we don't want to discount this. And I don't think I've met anyone that said, no, my life is perfect. I have no stress right now. Nothing has changed. Everyone has changed. Everything has changed for everyone in this situation. One of the leaders that I've been listening to is Stephen Furtick from Elevation Church, and he did a sermon on normal. And he said, it's funny. He says, most of us didn't even like the normal we were living in a couple of months ago, but we're craving to have it back. And that's because we're creatures of habit. But what he says is, he says, I hate to bust your bubble, but you need to know that normal is gone. The normal we knew before will never, ever return. Life will always be different. So we've got to look forward to the next normal. We've got to look forward to what is next as normal, and we have to figure out how to define that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that this is a very normal physiological response to crisis, and that doesn't make you weak, less than, above than. It just is what it is. So when we look at this and our body goes into that fight or flight response, there are 3 different responses that scientifically people say these are the directions people go in. You either focus, you fold, or you freeze. Focused people, they double down on life and they say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to deal with this head on. Okay. Some people fold, and that means they turn tail and run. They're done. I'm done. I don't want any part of this. Period. The end. I'm out. And then I think the scariest of the 3 is when you freeze. The frozen people are the ones who can really perish because they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to turn, tail and run, or whether to double down and focus in. So as I mentioned those, you think about, when I said that, you said, oh, I'm that personality. Do you focus? Do you fold, or do you freeze? This was created for leaders, but it really is relevant to everyone. And right now I tell people, we're starting to recognize which of these personalities we are. And then we're also trying to surround ourselves with other people who can help us focus in, especially if that's not your first tendency. You may need help from some of us who go in the head of things. The shark attack is less likely for me, but I tell people, I am definitely the one that if someone breaks into my house, I will find them before they find me. Because the last thing in the world I want to do is fold or freeze in that situation, because that seems even scarier to me. My personality, it seems scary to me than to deal with the problem head on. So in the book, Micro Resilience, there's your cover. Micro Resilience, Bonnie St. John and Alan Haynes talk about what allows us to rise above. What is it that allows you to edge out and have that competitive advantage that others don't have in front of you right now? So when we look at this, the 5 chapters that we go through, because I don't want to give away all of her information either and decrease the value of what she's created. That would never be right. But I do want to introduce it to you and challenge you to go out there and read it for yourself and check it out for yourself. Tell me what your thoughts on it. I love bouncing ideas off and learning from other people. First thing she says is you got to focus. You got to refocus your brain so you can think more clearly, right? You've got to come up with a logical plan. And so that means that you're going to have to shake off the distractions and figure out what really needs to be dealt with versus what's in the fray. What's over here in the periphery that doesn't need to be handled right now. Because you really, things are different. It's going to require a different kind of attention. I think one of the challenges that is coming from this is the fact that most of us are working from home right now, and that makes it really hard to focus. It makes it hard to focus when my son is saving the world on Fortnite, and I can hear him across the house screaming like a crazy person, and and focusing, because then while he's doing that, listening to rap music, my daughter is listening to Billie Eilish and going through every hormonal emotion that a young preteen goes through, and then I'm over here going, oh my God, but I got to figure out how to get this done and how to help them homeschool. God bless you, teachers, man. I'm so ready for teachers to come back. I did not do well in geometry in high school, and I am reliving that as I help my children with their geometry homework, and that is enough to put me in fight or flight. Let me tell you, that makes me want to fold. That makes me want to fold all day long. I'm like, so can you make it through school without geometry? So as we look at this, how do we do that? And also, how do we focus so that when it's time to shut off, we shut off? The other challenge of it is owning my own business. If I'm not working, I'm not making money. So it is really challenging that sometimes I don't walk away, or I walk away and I come back. I go to turn my computer off for the night. And I'm like, oh, but I could check a few more emails and make sure everything's there. And then I find myself working into crazy hours and my brain doesn't rest. And then when my brain doesn't rest, I can't focus. So we've got to look at focus in the situation. Next thing we got to do is we got to reset that primitive alarm, right? That alarm's going off. And there was a funny meme recently where this guy was making the purge noise, which I don't want to imitate because then I would become like a viral meme myself and that would be embarrassing. But basically it was this high-pitched squeal and you got to shut it off, right? You got to shut it off so that you can focus, so you can think. So you remember when you were little and your mom says, take a breath, count to 10. Well, that's scientific. That's actually legit, because if we want our brain to kick into our logical thought process, waiting and going, take a breath right now, right? Oh my God, it's calm, right? I feel so much calmer now. I'm all hyped up to share this information with you. But when I take that breath, it resets everything. Right? I take a breath, my voice just got softer. My communication gets a little bit softer. And let me tell you, this is really important, because when people are in crisis, they will try to show you their best side when they're consciously thinking about it. But when you're in crisis, you naturally kind of go to a place where you're a little more nasty than normal. um, Years of work, and people are like, how do you know all of this? I'm like, I was an ER nurse. Okay, if you want to be abused, go and work in the ER, because everybody hates you, and it's a really tough job because you've got pressure. And it's not everybody hates you, but there's pressure for you to perform from your leaders, and there's pressure for you to perform from your patients, and there's pressure for you to perform from the public who's inside watching. And everybody that goes to an ER is in their version of a crisis, whether it's truly a crisis or not. They're in that. So you're dealing with having to reset the alarm all the time. And at this point, you got to give grace. When you set the alarm, you got to give grace, because you know what? There's going to be a point where you screw it up and you step over the line too. And if you haven't given people grace along the way, don't expect to get it back. It's not always that easy. So I tell people, taking a breath, resetting that alarm, recognizing there may need to be some grace in this situation, definitely makes a huge difference. That goes into your mindset. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So when you get stressed, you immediately go to negative places, right? Because it's about survival, and it's about, am I going to survive, and are my odds any good? And let me tell you, if you want to sink, stay in that dark place. Those of us who are trying to edge out above the rest and figure out how to survive in this moment, it's not that we're trying to do it on our own or that we're trying to edge out anybody else, as much as it's we're trying to stay positive. What are the things that I can control, right? What are the things that I have an ability to influence? One of my leaders once said, you know, Melissa, look at your circle of influence. And if it's outside of your circle of influence, whether you want to or not, you got to let it go. And she used to make me crazy saying that, but she was so right. She was so right, so wise in that. So your mindset becomes a huge thing. I'm an optimist first, but understand I'm also a realist. And a realist says, I understand that there are challenges out there and there are problems out there, but I'm choosing to focus on the things I can control, and understanding that I don't have to have all the answers right there, right? Nobody's asking for you to have all the answers right now. They're asking you for your thoughts and your guidance, okay? So understand that's where that positive mindset is so important. She talks about in a chapter about refreshing your body. Refreshing your body. You know, you are what you eat. And I've spent all this time, for those of you who know me personally, I've spent a lot of time losing a lot of weight. And let me tell you, being at home on quarantine with my cooking is not good for my booty, okay? Because all of a sudden, I'm like, I can cook. Before I worked 60 hours a week, and so I cooked some. But now I'm cooking, and my kids, you know, they don't want, you know, grilled chicken and vegetables every day. They want orange rolls, and they want cinnamon rolls, and they want lettuce wraps and all these things. So I've been cooking it up. But I need to make sure I'm careful about how much of that I put into my body, and is it the right things? Because right now, if I'm in fight or flight, it's said that your immune system starts to decrease. And for God's sakes, right now more than ever, we need that immune system to be set up for optimum success. Hydration is also a huge part. Drinking water, water, water. Drinking water, staying hydrated, especially for those of my peers that are wearing all that PPE. You know, you're sweating and you're losing volume just because of the extra layers you're having to wear right now. Water helps with our clarity, and it also helps keep us from storing so much fat. So let me tell you, I have had to drink my water. Last but not least, you've got to renew your purpose. She says you've got to renew your purpose, because the thing is, I don't think there's a single person that's going to listen to this and say their life hasn't changed. Everybody's lives have changed, and they're going to continue to change. So what is the plan? What is the plan? What is it that's going to change and what is it that's going to stay the same? I know I'm looking back, this isn't just an introspective conversation, but this is a conversation I'm going to have with the people that work with me, with my colleagues. You know, life has changed. So how are we going to deal with this? And what are some things that we've learned from this? You know, what do you think it needs to change about your role versus stay the same? And what do you think needs to change about my role? And how are we going to do this together? And with that can be overwhelming and put us in fight or flight as well, trying to figure out that purpose. But what I want to tell you is that early on in the game, I was doing some consulting work for a company that wanted to develop a screening tool for risk for COVID exposure and look for sick people and kind of flag the ones who were at risk, that they were on the edge of getting sick, but they didn't know it yet. And this is the kind of stuff that I used to help the hospital with. So I had to go back and use that mindset. And, you know, the fear and the doubt came in at first. Do I really remember how to do this? Can I do this? And so I'm trying to come up with this perfect plan. And the girl that I was working with was ex-military. She said, Melissa, I need an 80% solution. What? Melissa, I need an 80% solution. Oh, see, you got to understand, a plan is never going to be 100% perfect. And right now we are in a time where we need to react and we need to respond. So 80% is good for me, because the truth is tomorrow new information is going to come out and it's going to change. And we know that how we understand the virus, whether or not we flatten the curve and we continue to flatten it or keep it sustainable, whether the government has different guidelines that they're trying to decide to really try to keep us all safe and get businesses to reopen. You know, in those situations, instead of waiting for perfection, it's time for progress. As that means you've got to have an 80% solution in this situation. I think it also goes back to, guys, we've really got to take care of each other. We've got to make sure we're not an island unto ourselves and that we're looking at each other for support and as resources in this situation, because I think we're just beginning to see some of the mental health issues that are going to rise because of this. Part of my role with not being a nurse at the bedside for the first time ever when something major happens, I found that I'm attempting to be a support system and a sounding board for those who need to express what's going on and process what's going on in this. And so with this, that means that we've got to spend time taking care of ourselves, and we've got to be resilient, and not only taking care of ourselves, but we've got to take care of each other. And that's the one thing I can tell you about America is that when bad things happen, we pull together. People pull together and they work hard to try to be there for each other, and it seems to increase our sense of patriotism and altruism, and I'm grateful for those moments. Life isn't going to be the same. It's not. So I'm hoping that this information just gives you a reassurance or opens your eyes to the fact that, you know what, it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And if we look out for each other and we just figure out what's next, that's a huge piece. I'll leave you with one other book I've been reading. I've been reading Overcomer by Dr. David Jeremiah, and the movie is great. The movie is absolutely fantastic, but it is not the book. It is inspired by the book, but it is not the book. So I've been reading this book, and one of the things he says is we're never going to be free of trials in this world. We're always going to have trials. He says, so what you have to do is try to do the next right thing. And that has really become my mantra since I read that about 6 weeks ago, is do the next right thing. What is the next right thing in this situation? And if you do that, that goes back to that whole concept of grace, giving each other grace, and hopefully receiving grace from other people when you make those missteps. Again, I just wanted to share this information with you free of charge because it was on my heart to do so. So I will encourage you to share it with other people if you like it. Reach out to your network, reach out to your peers. I'm grateful for the Chamber of Commerce's in my area that are helping support me as a small business in keeping me up to speed on what's going on with legislation and what's going on with assistant opportunities. It has really kept me from having to spend too much time in the news and read and filter to figure out what's real. I've been able to look back to my leaders in Garner and in Clayton and at Triangle East Chamber to give me direction and to help me remember that I'm not in this alone. So if you are a business owner and you're not a chamber member, now may be a good time to think about joining. I know they're trying to do things so that it doesn't cost you money up front right now because they know the crisis we're in, but we also know the resource and the values that we add. as we can all return back to our new normal. So that was my plug for them too. They didn't know about it, but it was in my heart, so it's all out. So again, my name is Melissa Overton. I am a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach, as well as the CEO and head housekeeper. So it's everything at medicaltraining.me in Smithfield, North Carolina, your local provider for first aid, CPR, and beyond. I pray for you to stay safe, stay well, and let me know what you think of this. Find me on social media, Melissa Godwin Overton. Thanks.